She doesn't even work, you know, Virginia announced, her voice rising above the chatter in the center of the room. Fork movements ceased. All eyes turned to Elise. In that moment, her hand holding the crystal glass trembled ever so slightly. But she just smiled quietly. No one knew. No one had any idea what this woman, this freeloader, as she'd been called, was about to reveal. The soft evening light gently embraced Virginia Morgan's Southern-style mansion. This home, standing in an exclusive Texas neighborhood, perfectly harmonized antique heirlooms with modern decor. In the spacious dining room, an elegant dinner party was underway with 12 invited guests. Elise Morgan could feel Virginia's gaze fixed upon her. Beneath that outwardly serene expression, there seemed to lurk something coldly calculated. Elise shifted slightly, adjusting her grip on the crystal wine glass. "Everyone, this is my son's wife, Elise," Virginia said, delicately touching her pearl necklace while smiling graciously. "She's from California and does some little computer thing from home." Elise's hand froze momentarily. The motion of raising her wine glass trembled slightly. A small wave of discomfort and annoyance passed through her chest at having her profession, a specialist handling highly confidential translations for a global Silicon Valley company, described in such dismissive terms. "Mother," Trevor intervened with a gentle voice. "Elise is an international translation specialist. She speaks 6 languages." "Yes, of course," Virginia maintained her smile, lightly stroking her perfectly styled blonde hair. "But since she doesn't go to an office, it's not really a proper job, is it? If you can do it from home, it can't be that demanding." Her words were soft, yet like a cat with concealed claws. The guests awkwardly averted their gazes, trying to change the subject. Elise smiled back politely, but small sparks scattered inside her heart. After the party, Elise was organizing materials for tomorrow's translation project in her dedicated office on the 2nd floor. She was originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, held a master's degree in linguistics from Columbia University, and had studied abroad at the University of Paris. She had met Trevor in Paris and was drawn to his warm personality and sincerity. After their marriage, they had moved in temporarily with his mother following Trevor's promotion. Glancing back, she caught Virginia peering through the half-open door. When their eyes met, Virginia smiled as if nothing were amiss. "Sorry, I was just checking on the cleaning," she said with a flimsy excuse. "This room used to be my husband's study. It holds so many memories." Even as she spoke, her eyes quickly captured the screen of Elise's laptop. Elise noticed but said nothing. After Virginia left, she carefully closed her laptop screen and locked her important documents in a drawer with a secure lock. That night, lying in the luxurious bed in the master bedroom, Elise confided her small concern to Trevor. "Your mother comes into my office without permission," she said quietly. "It bothers me a little." "Mother is old-fashioned," Trevor made an easy excuse. He had gentle features and a personality that never opposed his mother. "This is her house, and it's just her way of welcoming you. She's lonely too. She's been alone in this big house since my father passed away." Elise said nothing more. But she knew that her mother-in-law's eyes had certainly captured the confidential documents displayed on her laptop screen. In the middle of the night, as Elise lay awake, her mother-in-law's words from the party echoed repeatedly in her mind. The next morning, while preparing breakfast in the kitchen, she noticed Virginia placing her coffee cup in a clearly different location from the rest of the family. It was a subtle gesture, but one that seemed to carry the message, "You are not a member of this family." Elise took a deep breath to calm herself. This might be just her imagination. Yet somehow, in a corner of her heart, she sensed the premonition of a quiet battle beginning. It was something progressing, steadily beneath the surface of politeness. 3 weeks after Elise and Trevor moved into Virginia's house, the mansion's spacious living room buzzed with an afternoon tea party. Virginia had invited local society women and was managing the event with Southern hospitality. The air was filled with elegant laughter, mingling with the fragrant steam rising from the silver tea set. Although Elise was facing an important translation project deadline, she had interrupted her work at her mother-in-law's request to make an appearance at the tea party. As she passed through the hallway to return to her project, she heard Virginia's voice coming from the living room. "My son is supporting her." The voice was slightly higher than usual and grating. "She's living in our home rent-free, yet she barely helps with housework. I think she just plays games on her computer all day." Elise stopped in her tracks. A flame of anger ignited deep in her chest. She was about to turn back but suddenly thought better of it. Explaining the importance of her work to her mother-in-law's friends seemed pointless. Taking a deep breath, she headed toward her office. Upon entering, Elise sensed something was wrong with her desk. The arrangement was subtly different. She began searching for important reference materials for her translation, original technical manuals in Chinese and Russian. The desk surface, drawers, bookshelf, cabinet, they were nowhere to be found. Worried, Elise returned to the living room. The tea party was still in progress, and she approached her mother-in-law with a polite smile. "Virginia, have you seen my translation materials?" Elise asked in the calmest voice she could manage. "They're Chinese and Russian technical manuals that were on my desk." Virginia paused with her teacup midair, looking up at Elise. Her eyes were clear but held a cold light. "Materials? No, I haven't seen them," she said firmly. "I asked Martha to clean this morning, but I didn't tell her to throw anything away." Though suspicious, Elise didn't pursue the matter further in that moment. She didn't want to disrupt the tea party atmosphere. Still, her intuition told her something was wrong. That night, after searching throughout the house, Elise decided to check the garbage bins in the backyard. In the humid southern night air, she refused to give up. Finally, she discovered torn pieces of the technical manuals. The pages had been deliberately ripped and stained with coffee, rendering them unreadable. "I found them," Elise told Trevor when he returned home, showing him the fragments of torn materials. "These were the documents I needed for my work. I found them in the trash." Trevor's face showed confusion. He removed his glasses and rubbed his tired eyes after a long day as a financial consultant. "Maybe Martha made a mistake," he suggested. "Mother wouldn't do something like that." "Trevor, do you think this was an accident?" Elise asked quietly. "These materials were essential for my work." "There's no proof," Trevor said, showing slight irritation. "Mother is a polite person. She wouldn't deliberately do such a thing. She graduated from Harvard and taught high school for 35 years. Elise stared directly into her husband's eyes. "You don't believe me?" At those words, Trevor's expression softened. He took his wife's hand. "Of course I believe you. I just don't want you to speak ill of Mother. She truly cares about us." Elise nodded silently. But doubt crept into her heart. Who was really lying? Was it Virginia, or was her husband knowingly protecting his mother? Late that night, Elise returned to her office. She noticed that the desk drawer was slightly open. She was certain she had closed it yesterday. Looking around cautiously, she decided to install a small surveillance camera in the corner of the room. The next morning, when Elise was alone with Virginia in the kitchen, she casually asked, "Did you enter my room last night?" Virginia smiled brightly while pouring coffee. "Of course not. I respect your privacy," she said. However, her eyes remained fixed on the coffee cup, avoiding Elise's gaze. Elise didn't miss this reaction. She said nothing, taking a sip of her coffee. She noticed the taste was slightly different. More bitter than usual, with something off about it. Was Virginia drinking her own special blend while preparing something different for Elise? Lovely coffee, Elise smiled gently, but quietly set the cup aside. Inside Elise's mind, a small alarm began to sound. This was no longer just her imagination. She realized she needed to do something. To protect herself, to safeguard her work, and most importantly, to establish her place in this new family. On an early summer afternoon, a month and a half after moving in, Virginia's mansion was wrapped in quiet tension as preparations for a local charity event were underway. Virginia was long known as a central figure in charitable activities within the local community. The following day's event was her annual Southern Hospitality Charity Gala, a gathering of local dignitaries to raise donations for underprivileged children. Elise was focused in her office. She was working on a translation project for confidential new technology from her global company, with a strict deadline tomorrow. The success of this project had significant implications for her career. Without knocking, the door opened. Virginia appeared in a glamorous summer dress, stepping into Elise's office. Light reflected off her perfectly styled blonde hair, making it shine. "Elise, you'll help with preparations for tomorrow's event, won't you?" Virginia said in a sweet, gentle voice that sounded more like confirmation than a question. "Everyone is looking forward to it. I'd especially like you to handle the luncheon setup and guest reception." Elise turned her chair to face her mother-in-law. She tried to respond as calmly as possible, yet with a resolute attitude. "I'm sorry, but I have an important deadline tomorrow," Elise explained. "This project is something I've been working on for months and is extremely important both for the company and for me." Virginia's expression hardened momentarily. Beneath her perfect makeup, Elise could see her cheek muscles tighten. However, she quickly regained her usual graceful smile. "I see, I understand," Virginia said. But her eyes were cold and clear. "I know your work is important, but don't you also have family obligations? Especially as Trevor's wife, don't you think events I host as his mother are important?" Elise took a deep breath. "Of course, family is important. But this is a crucial milestone for my career. I'd be happy to help on another occasion." Virginia left without saying anything more. However, as she closed the door, Elise caught the faint smile that appeared at the corner of her mouth. That smile held something ominous. At dinner that evening, the three of them ate quietly around the dining table. Under the luxurious crystal chandelier, silver cutlery gleamed like moonlight. Suddenly, Virginia put down her fork and took out a handkerchief. "Trevor, I need to talk to you," her voice trembled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Tomorrow's charity event, the most important activity in my life." Virginia began to plead tearfully. "Despite how hard I'm working, your wife refuses to fulfill her family responsibilities." She wiped her tears with the handkerchief. "Do I have to do everything alone? Would you make your aging mother push herself so hard?" Trevor looked at Elise with a confused expression. Gradually, a hint of accusation appeared in his eyes. "Mother, please don't cry like that," Trevor said gently. "Elise, can't you help Mother? It's just for one day." "Trevor, this deadline has been set for months," Elise tried to explain calmly. "The success of this project for my career. Isn't family more important than work?" Trevor's voice grew slightly stronger. He rarely raised his voice, but his mother's tears had moved him. "Mother welcomed you as family. Can't you repay that kindness?" Elise felt the silence spreading across the table. Both pairs of eyes were fixed on her. She realized the strong bond between husband and mother, understanding that resistance was futile in this moment. "All right," Elise said quietly. "I'll help tomorrow." A victorious expression flashed across Virginia's face for just a moment, quickly transforming into a grateful smile. "Thank you, Elise. You truly are a wonderful daughter-in-law." That night, lying in bed, Elise mentally organized the following day's schedule. She would wake up at 4 in the morning to work for a few hours, then help with the charity event, then return to work at night, somehow trying to meet the deadline. Beside her, Trevor slept peacefully. The next day, Elise started work early, then helped with her mother-in-law's event. She greeted guests with a smile at the reception, set up the luncheon, and entertained guests. However, in her mind, the deadline clock was ticking relentlessly. She returned home after 6 in the evening. Elise dragged her tired body toward her office. As soon as she entered the room, she instinctively felt something was wrong. The papers on her desk had been subtly moved, and the position of her laptop was slightly shifted. She quickly checked the small surveillance camera. Playing back the recording, she found undeniable evidence. While Elise was away at the charity event, Virginia had entered her office and accessed Elise's computer. The footage even showed Virginia inserting a USB drive and copying files. A cold fear ran through Elise's chest. She immediately checked her emails. There was an urgent message from her translation client stating, "Suspected information leak." The message warned that confidential information from Elise's account had been forwarded to what appeared to be a third-party email address. "This can't be." Elise's voice trembled. She intuitively understood. This was Virginia's deliberate sabotage. An intentional act to destroy Elise's work and ruin her career. And most painfully, Trevor had unknowingly contributed to this betrayal. Elise stood by the window, looking down at the garden. There, Virginia was elegantly chatting with the gardener, her smile showing no trace of her malicious actions from earlier. Elise's heart froze. Having lost her mother early in life and seeking a new family, this betrayal was unbearable for her. Virginia appeared welcoming on the surface, while secretly trying to destroy her career. Worse still, she had used Elise's husband, Trevor, to do it. Elise couldn't stop her body from trembling. Anger, fear, and deep sadness enveloped her. She acutely felt that the space she once trusted was no longer safe. But in this moment, something changed within Elise. She decided she was no longer a victim, but a warrior fighting to protect her life and work. After saving the camera footage and sending an explanatory email to her client, she secured her laptop with security locks and began to plan her next move. At dinner time, Elise appeared in the dining room with an unchanged expression. Virginia smiled triumphantly, talking about the success of the charity event. Trevor praised his mother and said to Elise, "Thank you for helping." Elise simply nodded quietly. In her mind, a plan for counterattack was already taking shape. A few days after the charity event, Elise quietly but decisively began to take action. She was no longer passive. She started gathering evidence, finding allies, and most importantly, reaffirming her own value. First, she enhanced her office security. She installed multiple new high-performance mini cameras and equipped her laptop with the latest biometric locks. Whenever she left the room, she backed up all important documents to an encrypted cloud and stored physical materials in a special safe. Her boss at the Silicon Valley tech company, Daniel Richardson, promised immediate support after hearing about the information leak crisis. "You're one of our most valuable assets, Elise," he said over the phone. "Tell me what support you need. We can also provide a legal team." Most important to Elise was the appearance of an unexpected ally, Virginia's friend, Judith Parker. It happened one afternoon when Virginia was hosting another tea party. Elise had deliberately left the house and was quietly working alone at a local cafe. Sensing someone approaching her table, she looked up to see a woman around 65 years old whom she often noticed at Virginia's tea parties. Her natural silver-gray hair and elegant yet casual attire made an impression. "You're Elise, aren't you?" The woman smiled kindly. "I'm Judith Parker, an old friend of Virginia's. May I speak with you for a moment?" Though wary, Elise offered her the adjacent seat. Judith glanced around before lowering her voice. "I can tell you're troubled by Virginia," she said quietly. "You feel something's not right about her behavior, don't you?" Elise's eyes widened in surprise. "How did you know?" "I once suffered under a mother-in-law like her," Judith said, slowly stirring her coffee. "Besides, Virginia's statements are always extreme. She's been my friend for 40 years, but I know her true nature too." "True nature?" Elise leaned forward instinctively. "Virginia," Judith continued, carefully choosing her words, "appears to be the perfect Southern lady on the surface, but everyone around her must act according to her expectations. Especially regarding her son Trevor, she has something close to possessiveness." Judith fixed her gaze on Elise's eyes. "She cannot accept that you are more successful than your husband. In traditional Southern values, the man should be the family breadwinner." Elise caught her breath. Judith's words perfectly matched the discomfort she had been feeling. "But why are you telling me this?" Judith smiled somewhat sadly. "I have a son who lives overseas. He went far away to escape my over-involvement. Now I'm lucky if I see him once a year." She paused. "I don't want Virginia to make the same mistakes I did. Besides, I see determination in your eyes. I'm sure you can change this situation." After that conversation, Elise and Judith began communicating regularly. Judith revealed that Virginia had been telling friends, "My son's wife doesn't work." Even more important was the passcode to Virginia's smartphone that Judith provided. "She always uses her birthday numbers," Judith told her. One day, while Virginia was away at a garden club meeting, Elise had an opportunity to check her smartphone. There she made a shocking discovery: numerous photos Virginia had secretly taken of her computer screen. She also found messages where Virginia had sent details of Elise's work to friends, labeling it as "my daughter-in-law's scandal." While gathering evidence, Elise also devoted herself fully to her work. She worked day and night to overcome the leak crisis and regain her clients' trust. Her efforts were rewarded when good news arrived from Daniel. "Elise, I'm impressed by your quick response and crisis management abilities," Daniel announced during a video conference. "Actually, I'm planning to recommend you as leader for our next global project. This will be a significant career advancement." Tears welled in Elise's eyes. In the midst of her struggles, her work was being recognized. "Thank you, Daniel." Meanwhile, her relationship with Trevor was also subtly changing. One night, as they spent time in their bedroom, Trevor noticed something different about his wife. "What's going on with you lately?" he asked worriedly. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Elise remained silent for a long time. Then, having made up her mind, she showed him the surveillance camera footage. "Look at this." The screen clearly showed Virginia accessing her computer. Elise could see Trevor's face drained of color. "When was this?" His voice trembled. "The day of the charity event," Elise said quietly. "While I was helping out." Trevor clutched his head in his hands. "I can't believe it. Mother doing something like this. Do you understand why she would do this?" Elise gently asked. Trevor remained silent for a long time. Eventually, he painfully confessed. "Mother has always believed that I should be the center of the family. After father died, her life began to revolve around me. I think she can't accept a wife who's more successful than I am." "Trevor," Elise took her husband's hand. "I'm not competing with you. I want us to grow together as partners." For the first time, Trevor seemed determined to stand by his wife rather than his mother. "What should we do?" Elise smiled. "I have a plan." In her mind, the next move was already taking shape. It wasn't mere revenge, but a strategy to reveal the truth and explore a new form of family. A plan to have her value recognized and, most importantly, to rebuild her relationship with Trevor on a foundation of new trust. Elise gazed out the window. The evening sky was beautifully tinted. The following day, Virginia planned to host a large dinner party. And it would provide the perfect stage. Virginia Morgan's mansion was perfectly arranged that night, like an elaborate stage set. The champagne gold chandelier cast light from the ceiling, reflecting in the guests' eyes like brilliant jewels, while the heavy antique furniture seemed to whisper stories from across centuries. The air was filled with expensive floral fragrances, mixing with the early summer heat of the South, pregnant with the premonition that something was about to happen. Virginia sat at the head of the table like a queen in the center of the microcosm known as Texas high society. She was wrapped in a silk dress of such a vivid crimson it resembled blood. Behind her perfectly calculated smile lurked the certainty that tonight she would achieve her desired outcome. In contrast, Elise wore a deep azure dress like a calm sea, sitting peacefully like the stillness before a storm. Yet behind her eyes lay hidden the power of crashing waves. Beside her, Trevor couldn't hide the conflict churning within, desperately struggling to control his heart as it wavered between his mother, whom he had known since childhood, and his wife, the companion of his soul. His hand unconsciously sought Elise's fingers, and they gripped each other firmly under the table. The warmth of that touch connected them with a promise stronger than words. "Ladies and gentlemen, I deeply thank you all for coming this evening." Virginia's voice spread through the room, sweet as honey. She raised her crystal wine glass and tapped its rim with a small spoon. The clear tone filled the venue, silencing all conversation. All eyes focused on her alone. This was the moment when Virginia felt most alive. "It is my utmost pleasure to celebrate this special evening with our family and all of you." She sent her gaze to each guest individually, adding words that reminded them of their personal connections. However, the moment her eyes moved to Elise, they turned cold as ice. It lasted only an instant, but Elise clearly saw it as an omen. "Everyone," Virginia lowered her voice, leaning forward as if to draw the others closer. "There is a situation in our family that I feel only our close friends should know about." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Elise's heart began to race. Yet her expression remained as calm as a lake's surface. How she had trained herself for this moment. "My daughter-in-law is lazy." Virginia's thin finger pointed at Elise. The fingertip trembled like a witch casting a curse. Despite being supported by Trevor, she does no housework and stays locked in her room all day playing on her computer. She doesn't possess a single quality of a proper Southern woman. The arrows of words were released one after another, piercing Elise's chest. Yet she only smiled quietly. Whispers of surprise ran through the guests, and sympathetic glances were directed at Elise. This was exactly the development Virginia had intended. Elise slowly removed the napkin from her lap and placed it on the table. Then, like a water spirit rising from the surface, she stood up quietly. The entire room held its breath. In Elise's eyes shone a strong light like thousands of twinkling stars. She made eye contact with each guest, as if checking whether they were ready to accept the truth. "Thank you for that self-serving introduction, Virginia." Elise's voice was clear as a calm lake, but beneath it flowed the strength of a deep river. "But I'd like to give everyone more accurate information about my work." For an instant, a crack ran across Virginia's face. Beneath her perfect social mask, a shadow of fear flickered. She quickly composed herself and flashed a mocking smile. "Yes, of course. Everyone, please do listen to her talk about her work." The moment those words hung in the air, the wheel of fate began to turn. Elise's smartphone rang out like lightning, cutting through darkness. Everything was going according to plan. This call was the means to manipulate the threads of destiny. "Please excuse me. This is a call from an important client," Elise said, exuding noble elegance as she turned on the speakerphone. What flowed from her mouth was French, beautiful as music. Each word sparkled like a jewel, dancing around the room. The conversation concerned cutting-edge technology and international business strategy, with complex technical terms intertwining like a symphony. Elise's expression was filled with professional pride. When the call ended, she quietly set down her phone. The room was wrapped in complete silence. "I apologize for the interruption," Elise smiled. Her smile was warm like the morning sun, yet blinding like the light of truth. "I work as an exclusive translator for a global tech company in Silicon Valley. I primarily handle technical documents with national-level security clearance and international contracts, worth billions of dollars." Each of her words pierced Virginia's heart like a dagger. Virginia's face was drained of color, leaving her white and rigid like a wax figure. "I speak 6 languages, hold a master's degree in linguistics from Columbia University, and studied abroad at the University of Paris," Elise continued calmly. "And actually," she sent Trevor a loving glance. In her eyes, sadness and love were intermingled. "My annual income significantly exceeds my husband's." Whispers rippled through the room. Virginia's fingers clutched the pearl tablecloth, her nails nearly tearing through the fabric. "Why am I sharing this now?" Elise's voice gradually became more emotional. "Because my professional life was deliberately sabotaged." She took out her smartphone and displayed its contents on a large screen. There, in high resolution, was the decisive moment when Virginia invaded Elise's sanctuary on the day of the charity event, accessing her computer. Next came numerous secretly taken photos found on Virginia's phone. Finally, a chain of slanderous messages Virginia had sent to friends claiming, "My son's wife doesn't work." As the evidence was revealed one by one, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. On the guests' faces appeared first suspicion, then shock, and finally sympathy. Particularly in Judith's eyes, tears of sadness glistened. "And what pains me most is..." Elise's voice trembled slightly. This was not an act. Genuine emotion seeped through her words. "With the bonus from this project, I had planned to surprise Virginia with a European trip she's dreamed of for years." She displayed her correspondence with the travel agency saved on her phone. A Seine River cruise in Paris, a private tour in Rome, reservations at a legendary Barcelona restaurant, all arranged at the highest level of luxury. "Trevor and I planned it together. For your birthday, we wanted to deepen the bonds between the 3 of us as a family." Elise's voice lingered quietly, like the distant sound of a fading bell. The room fell silent as a tomb. Even the chandelier light seemed to have lost its brilliance. Virginia's face was ashen white, and everyone witnessed her perfect life mask shatter before their eyes. With trembling hands, she clung to Elise's arm. Her fingers were desperate, like a drowning person grasping at the last straw. "Because you were always locked in your room." "I misunderstood." Virginia's voice had completely lost its former dignity, transforming into a pitiful plea. "I only wanted to protect my son's happiness." Elise felt a fragment of emotion she could understand in Virginia's words, having lost her own mother. Yet simultaneously, she knew it wasn't the truth. She gently but firmly removed Virginia's hand. "Family means trusting each other, Virginia." Elise's voice was like a soft blanket that enveloped them all, yet harbored a steel core of truth. "Without that, we become mere strangers, no enemies." Trevor stood up and positioned himself beside Elise. His face showed both the pain of separating from his mother, his only guide since childhood, and his determination for a new beginning with his true partner. "Mother," his voice resonated with a strength he had never before exhibited. "I love Elise. She is my soulmate and helps me grow." Tears welled in his eyes, but his resolve remained unshaken. "Between old values and new bonds, I have made my choice. We will leave here tomorrow." The last drop of blood drained from Virginia's face. Her eyes became hollow like a lifeless doll's. But, you are my only son, my everything. I am your son, Trevor said gently, despite his pain. And that will never change. But I am also her husband. When you can accept both roles, we can gather again as a family. These words collapsed the final fortress of Virginia, who had once reigned as the queen of Southern society. She slumped into her chair, and the sound of her magnificent social mask shattering seemed to echo from the depths of her soul. Elise apologized sincerely to the guests. Her demeanor displayed not the arrogance of a victor, but the dignity of one who knows the pain of truth. I sincerely apologize for exposing such private matters in this setting. However, sometimes truth can only be revealed through the most painful methods. In her eyes shone quiet determination and expectation for the new chapter about to begin. It wasn't the victory of revenge, but the reaffirmation of her own value and the first step toward building true family bonds. Judith quietly stood and approached Elise. In her eyes mingled past regrets and hope for the future. "You're a brave young woman," she whispered near Elise's ear, embracing her shoulder with motherly warmth. Virginia sat alone at the luxurious dining table that had once been her kingdom. Despite the magnificent decorations and expensive furnishings surrounding her, she had never felt more isolated. She could only stare blankly as her perfect world, her status as queen of high society, and most of all, her absolute control over her son crumbled noisily before her eyes. 3 months later, in a high-rise apartment in Manhattan. Morning sunlight streamed through large windows, filling the spacious living room with soft light. Elise stood by the window, gazing at the distant cityscape. Beside her was a small vase holding a single white lily in proud bloom. Much had changed since that dramatic night. Elise and Trevor had left Texas and moved to New York, where Trevor's company headquarters was located. A new life, a new beginning. Elise, as Daniel had recommended, was promoted to international project leader and now had her own translation team. The 6 specialists working under her deeply respected her leadership and knowledge. Trevor, too, had undergone significant changes. By gaining independence from his mother, he had become more confident in both work and personal decisions. Though his relationship with his mother remained complicated, he now called her at a fixed time once a week for private conversations. It was the first step toward healing. This morning, Elise was enjoying quiet morning time in their new home, coffee in hand. The furniture and decorations she had chosen reflected both her and Trevor's tastes. Modern yet warm interiors. It was a space they had created together, shaped by their will and choices. The doorbell rang, and Elise received the mail. Among the items was an unfamiliar envelope of high-quality stationery. It was a letter from Virginia. With trembling hands, she opened it to find words written in careful handwriting. "Dear Elise, please forgive me for being bound by old thinking. For a long time, I considered my son an extension of myself and prioritized my own values over his happiness. When you appeared and shook that world, I felt fear. And from that fear, I took the worst actions. Judith told me the truth. She was impressed by your courage and urged me to have the same courage, the courage to face myself. I am now receiving counseling. I'm taking responsibility for my actions to become a better person, a better mother. And someday, I hope to become a better mother-in-law. I know what I did to you is unforgivable. But if possible, I would like the opportunity to meet again someday and begin building a new relationship. With sincere respect for your courage and strength. Virginia." Elise held the letter to her chest, gazing out the window. In her heart, various emotions intermingled. Anger, sadness, and just a little hope. "What are you reading?" Trevor asked, wiping his sweaty forehead as he returned from his morning jog. "From your mother," Elise answered quietly, handing him the letter. Trevor read it silently, then let out a deep sigh. "Can you believe it? Not entirely, Elise answered honestly. But this might be the beginning of real change. The two stood by the window, looking at the New York scenery bathed in morning light. Elise took a calendar and wrote "Dinner with Virginia" on the last Sunday of next month. "Are you sure about this?" Trevor asked with surprise. "I can forgive, but I can't forget," Elise said quietly. "But this might be a new step for our family. It's worth trying." She added water to the white lily in the vase. This flower was her own choice. Not forced upon her by anyone, not adjusted to anyone else's preference, but purely her own selection. That afternoon, after a video conference with her new team, Elise was organizing the bookshelf in the study with Trevor as a final touch to their new home. The books they had chosen together told the story of their intellectual curiosity and shared interests. "I like this room," Trevor said. "It feels like us." "Yes," Elise smiled. "A place created by our choices. That's what matters." At dusk, they leaned on the balcony with glasses in hand, watching the city lights begin to twinkle one by one. In her heart, Elise felt a mixture of expectation for the future and liberation from the past. "Cheers," Trevor raised his glass. "To new beginnings." "And to our own choices," Elise responded. Glasses touched with a faint sound. It was the sound of a new vow, a new promise. Between them was a bond strengthened by trials overcome. And most importantly, a determination to respect each other and value truth. Elise glanced once more at the calendar in her hand. The words "Dinner with Virginia" symbolized both challenge and hope simultaneously. It might not be complete forgiveness, but it was a first step toward healing. A courageous step toward exploring a new relationship. Outside the window, Manhattan's night view grew more brilliant. It was a scene filled with countless stories and endless possibilities. The story of Elise and Trevor, too, would continue. Carrying the wounds of the past, yet with hope for the future in their hearts.